So this is the Vanguard Podcast, and I'm Zac.
I'm Gavin.
And we've just been joined by Juan Passarelli, co-founder of InfoSec Bytes and Guerrilla Pictures, journalist and filmmaker of the war on journalism, the Case of Julian Assange. How's it going, Juan?
I'm good. It's autumn, but the weather here in London is not freezing yet. So, it's all right. It's all good. I've had to, in the past, have to cover some legal cases in the winter, which is, I don't think is going to be the case this year. And standing outside court with, in the middle of the freezing winter is just the worst thing that could happen. But I think for Julian's court, apart from the 4th, which is going to be, I think, a very quick thing. Just to update you on what's happening. So the oral part of the first extradition hearing took place in September, and then the lawyers had to submit their final arguments in writing. I think the U.S. lawyers should be submitting their final arguments this next coming week. And then the judge is going to do a verdict on the 4th of January. That's what we've heard so far. But I don't think I'm going to be filming outside. I'm going to get somebody else to film outside, and I'm going to go inside and tweet because I think it's going to be a very important event. And although what we saw during the hearing was, I'm not a lawyer, but I saw the defense kicking ass every single day. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not stupid either. You know what I mean? And I've talked to quite a few legal experts, and they all agreed it was an amazing defense that was brought forth. But we are still all expecting a negative outcome out of this. So I want to make sure I'm in there when I see her face and witness this woman, if she does decide to do what I think she's going to do, I want to see her doing it, because that's historical, and that will be shameful for the United Kingdom.
And when you say it, you mean deciding to extradite Assange?
Yes, under the this is the first court. Unfortunately, the magistrate court is has which is the lower courts, has a reputation for being easily manipulatable, shall we say, by political actors. This is something that lawyers in Britain would find offensive to say, because to say that the independence of the judiciary is somehow compromised is outrageous. But I live in a realpolitik world, and I have seen how the United States can put pressure on other countries. And they did it in Germany. They put pressure in Germany in the court system to not proceed to send arrest warrants to CIA agents who had tortured a civilian who was German. And who also, by the way, was supposed to testify at Julian's case, because a cable of his, a cable that mentioned him, was the reason why we know that the United States actually manipulated the independence of the judiciary, because they said, if you send arrest warrants for the CIA members that are implicated in your case, there will be serious diplomatic repercussions. And this was in 2005. This guy was kidnapped by the CIA, tortured, sodomized. He was beaten. He was waterboarded, and then left in the middle of Albania somewhere. His name is Khalid El Masri. And I think the CIA just made a mistake and confused him with a known terrorist called Mohammed El Masri. I'm not entirely sure if that's the case or not, but they in the end left him in the middle of Albania, with no documentation, a mountain, and he had to make his way down to Germany. And a great journalist who's worked with WikiLeaks in 2005 found these CIA agents, and that's how the proceedings started. In 2010, when WikiLeaks revealed that Germany was basically put against the wall by the US, diplomatically speaking, Khalid al-Masri was able to go to the European Court of Human Rights, and he was compensated. But he has never had a chance to confront representatives of the United States government that tortured him in any court. And he was going to give his statement at Julian Assange's case, and the prosecution and the judge actually prevented him from doing it, because he was trying to connect to this, the webcam system via a phone, because he's not very technically savvy, and he was causing delays. But I mean, we've seen delays every day throughout the case. There were technical delays of hours, sometimes a whole morning just of technical delays. But this judge and the prosecution waited for 5 minutes, and they decided not to allow him to testify. And the reason why is that the prosecution did not want to hear orally a CIA torture program. The same thing happened to a good friend of mine, and the world's foremost expert in Guantanamo Bay, Andy Worthington, who was going to also give testimony in Julian's hearing, and the prosecution denied it. They managed to get him off the witness list. What was allowed was a summary for a summary of his statement to be read to court by the defense, which was about 5 minutes. And the reason why they didn't allow it is because he was going to talk about CIA torture programs. So yes, now I've been talking a lot about a lot of things. So maybe you should ask a question and guide me through what you guys are thinking.
One thing I did want to ask you, Juan, before we get a little bit more into the trial itself, is just a little bit about your documentary that you wrote, directed, and edited, which is The War on Journalism, the Case of Julian Assange, which for anyone watching, by the way, is an extremely well edited, really well crafted look at the Julian Assange's stint in the Ecuadorian embassy and the events that basically led up to the extradition trial that Julian is currently going through. As I said, it's a really well made and excellent, compelling short documentary, around 30 minutes, that'll be available in the description box for anyone that's watching this podcast. I highly recommend checking it out for a little bit of a better look at the a case of Julian Assange and the implications it'll have. I just wanted to hear how you initially got involved in this story, and also why you decided to make this documentary.
Well, I came to the UK to study journalism because I wanted to do documentaries. I thought the UK was the best place to do it because I saw as many people unfortunately see, the BBC as the beacon of ethical journalism. Now I see it as the worst state-sponsored, propaganda machine. But I mean, that's taken 10 years of my life to discover actually what actual real journalism is. By pure coincidence, I happened to meet Julian Assange early on in my career, as soon as I graduated from this master's degree, and I was asked to film the release of the Iraq war logs. Maybe before going into like what I've done, I just want to say the reason I made this film is that there have been an apparatus, a propaganda apparatus of 5 different countries, systematically attacking Julian and turning him into a monster for the last 10 years, since 2010. This is the United States, the Ecuador, Sweden, Australia, and the United Kingdom. And they have done this in an incredibly successful manner because, they know how to use, they developed psychological warfare and they use it on their own people. And I also wanted to make this film to remind people what the revelations that he is being charged for were. What age are you guys? We're
both 22.
22, so you were 12 when the revelations took place. These were the Afghan and Iraq war logs, which is the biggest leak in military history, and it covered basically every incident that the United States logged happened in a war. So it's the best description of how a war actually happened. There's an incident where, for example, at a checkpoint, an 18-year-old kid kills an entire family that's driving by because they were driving by too fast. And then, the Americans logged down, civilian casualties, blah, blah, blah. The car was going too fast. That is what the logs are. They are significant acts. That's what they're called. So WikiLeaks revealed the Afghan war logs because it was an ongoing war. Then they released the Iraq war logs, which was an ongoing war, but in the eyes of the media, it was already closed when George Bush did that funny stunt of going into this this airplane ship, and they claimed victory and all that shit. But by 2010, the Iraq war was still going on. They also released the largest diplomatic treasure trove of diplomatic secrets in history, and the Guantanamo Bay detainee files. Also, a video called Collateral Murder, which shows how 11 civilians and 2 Reuters journalists are gunned down and killed and basically murdered by 2 Apache helicopters using 30 millimeter caliber bullets made of depleted uranium that just splatter like that. And then they make an initial shooting because they confuse the camera with an RPG, and then there's a driver by. He has a van. He's driving his kids to school. He sees Saeed Samal, who was one of the assistant photographer of Reuters, who was wounded. And the guys at the helicopters, you can hear them say, "Come on, buddy, pick up a weapon. You just need to pick up a weapon." And this guy comes up and starts taking him to his van to take him somewhere where he can be cured. And they get permission to fire again on the basis that they were taking him away. And, they destroy the hell out of that van. And the man who was driving his kids to school threw himself on top of his children. And by doing that, he saved their lives. And they were severely injured. You can see further down the video where when the military comes in and there's this guy who then had huge PTSD because of this this soldier. I can't remember his name. I will try to remember it, but there's this soldier who describes how he had to pick up the wounded children. He was asking permission to take the children to the American cutting edge hospital to be treated because they were seriously wounded, and the permission was denied. You could see that in the video. Because why? They're two Iraqi children. They're brown and they don't matter. I mean, the entirety of those 5 releases revealed war crimes. It revealed torture. It revealed how, for example, a 6-year-old girl was being tortured with a drill. One of my I don't want to say favorite cables, but definitely one that I consider one of the most important ones is a cable from a United Nations rapporteur on extrajudicial executions, who writes to the United States and says, I've been covering this case where coalition forces came into this farmer's house where he and his extended family were. It was him, his wife, 3 other women, and 5 children. They handcuffed them, then they shot them in the head, and then they ordered a warplane to bomb the hell out of it to get rid of the evidence. The cable was so powerful that at the time the prime minister in Iraq decided to remove the immunity to the U.S. soldiers. So Obama at that point in time was forced to end the occupation, which means most of the U.S. soldiers left. It didn't end the war because the war continues up to this day, right? Iraq is a no man's land of crazy terrorism and war fighting, and they're still there.
Juan, I think that's a good place to pause you for just a moment, because you did touch on a good thing there, just kind of the Obama continuation of a lot of the charade of Bush. You mentioned previously that Bush made this big show of, winning and accepting victory. Obama sort of did the same show when he withdrew most of the troops, but as you said, not all of the troops from Iraq. I'm wondering, now that we've just, however many days ago, about a week ago, elected a new president from the Joe Biden in America. I'm wondering, do you expect to see the continuation of the exact same policies that were kind of continued under Barack Obama, and then escalated under Trump? Or I just wondered if you could provide some insight into how you think that will impact things, if at all.
Well, what we saw in the Trump years was, I think, an escalation in some places, like, for example, Yemen. Yemen is the biggest catastrophe, human-made catastrophe in history. A child that dies there every 10 minutes, and it's because of malnutrition. 80% of the population is malnourished because they've destroyed every single infrastructure there. And American and UK soldiers, led by Saudi Arabia, are there bombing every day.
With
and
US
the bombs, the bombs that are used are manufactured in the United Kingdom and in the US. Hillary Clinton actually made the biggest arms sales in history to Saudi Arabia, to the amount of who knows how many, 34 billion, or I can't remember the figure, but it was a huge billion dollar. And two-thirds of the weapons that the United Kingdom makes go to Saudi Arabia. So there's a very comfy position there. But we did see some escalation in terms of Iran, for example, especially when President Trump decided to execute one of the high-ranking military Iranian military guys, and we did not see any de-escalation of any of the war. So the wars continued. I mean, the forever war is there. And the problem is that I don't think that it matters who is in the White House. the United States has a military-industrial complex problem, which is ingrained within a huge amount of agencies, all trying to get bigger budgets, and private companies who have a revolving door where they go into the FBI, CIA, Pentagon, etc., and then they come out and they go to the weapons manufacturers or the private military companies or the private surveillance companies, and then they get contracts from them. So and the government keeps on increasing every year the budget for its defense, and I mean, you have to justify that somehow, right? And if you're buying guns, that means that you're going to use them. If you're buying bombs, that means that you're going to use them. So I don't see that a democratic president would change foreign policy that much. Unfortunately, I know for Americans, for a lot of Americans, Biden is kind of like we don't have this crazy asshole anymore, right? But for someone like me, I come from Guatemala, so I was born in 1981, the year of the Guatemalan genocide. The Cold War was a Cold War for the U.S. and Russia, but it was very heated in Central America, right? And the munitions and training training military strategies came from the United States, and they were learned they were taught by Vietnam War experts to these armies, and we ended up with genocides and coups in all sorts of countries. I mean, Guatemala, the second elected president in 1954 was the second coup the CIA ever made, the first one being Iran in 1953, and then went Allende and the rest of Latin America. So I mean, there's been Democrats and Republican politicians throughout those years, but the foreign policy doesn't.
I just think the one thing that people may have been clinging to when it came to the Biden, inauguration, if they had any hope at all, which obviously Gavin and I don't, and that Joe Biden would somehow intervene and want to uphold this journalistic integrity, simply because Barack Obama did resist the pressure to, extradite Julian Assange on the basis of the Espionage Act, just because of the implications that had for free press. Now that that's been broached by Trump and Pompeo, you don't think there's any chance that he would intervene and halt the extradition, do you?
Right. So I actually have no idea. I mean, it's impossible to say what Biden will do he's not given any indication about what he's going to do with Julian. I mean, the case is active, and after January the 4th, there's going to be an appeal, whoever wins. If it's Julian, the US is going to appeal. That is the most likely scenario. If it's the US that wins, Julian will appeal for sure, and we will go to the high courts, and then there will be, if that doesn't work, there will be an application for the Supreme Court, and if that doesn't work, there'll be an application to the European Court of Human Rights. So it's gonna be years. I don't actually think that he will be extradited because the case is so outrageous. But I don't think that at least at this point in time, Julian Assange is in Biden's political agenda. He has COVID to deal with. He has the Paris treaty to think of. So at some point they might decide to drop the charges, but if not, we will fight until until the UK does not have the political power to do so, because by doing so we would basically ruin Western democracy as we know it.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, I just had another question for you, Juan, and that is just, it seems like there's so much misinformation out there about this case. It seems like most people, just most citizens, aren't really fully aware of this case, or if they are, they're not really aware of the gravity or implications of the potential precedent that would be set by this case. And obviously this is by design, with papers like The Guardian in the UK, or the New York Times here in America, barely reporting on the trial, and often just printing propaganda, like you mentioned with the BBC. Again, despite the massively important potential of the precedent set for the First Amendment, for journalism, for publishing rights, all of that stuff, why do you think that so many journalists nationwide have shied away from this such massive, important story? And do you think they're doing a disservice to their own craft of journalism by not talking about it?
Well, I think, yes, they are doing a disservice to their own craft. Individually, if you look at them individually, I think there's several things that happen. One is mainstream media people seem to feel more protected by their mainstream media status. So they think that if they get a leak the size of the alleged Chelsea Manning leaks, they would be able to publish. But what is being criminalized here is the actual receiving and handling of classified information. That is journalistic practice everywhere. And it would basically mean, as Trevor Timm, the head of the Freedom of the Press Foundation and a First Amendment scholar, said, it would be as bad as if journalists report on a classified document and you read it on the newspaper, you're committing a crime. You know what I mean? This is the end. This espionage prosecution of a publisher is not only unprecedented, as in it is the first time that it has ever happened to a publisher. It would effectively get rid of the First Amendment. And by doing that, we would not have the ability to know what is going on with our, in our country, and we would not be able to take informed decisions as to how to elect our representatives. So this is what I think. I diverted a little bit from your question, but could you ask it again, so that
I was just kind of wondering, and I mean, your answer was totally adequate for the most part. I was just kind of wondering why, what kind of pressure you think is preventing a lot of mainstream journalists that work for.
The other side of okay. So if they feel, if you see every single major newspaper, they have published editorials saying that this would ruin their ability to do journalism, but there is also a kind of like factor to talking about Julian Assange. A lot, these PSYOPs operations that have been going on for 10 years have created a monster, have created somebody that has allegedly endangered lives, although the Pentagon said under oath in Chelsea Manning this was not true. Have created a rapist, although the case in Sweden was opened and closed 3 times, and it was no charges were ever brought upon it, and it was declared that there was no evidence for wrongdoing in the case. They have created this idea of a hacker. He might have been a hacker when he was a kid. He is a publisher and a journalist right now. And even if you don't consider him a journalist, he is definitely a publisher. And he has built a system where sources can anonymously drop information. And by the way, WikiLeaks has both the 100% accuracy in reporting, which no other media in the world can say. It has 100% record in not revealing a source. The sources that have been allegedly revealed have been by other means, like, for example, Chelsea Manning talking to a guy called Adrian Lamo, and him ratting him out to the FBI, and then Chelsea confessing. But WikiLeaks has never revealed a source. There's the 2016 situation where suddenly Julian Assange is a Trump supporter for some reason, although what he did was literally publish information that showed corruption in the Democratic National Committee, which showed that Bernie Sanders was the primary candidate and not Hillary Clinton. And 5 people, the 5 top people at the DNC had to quit because of that. And the Podesta emails, which showed that what Hillary was saying to the people was not actually what she was
private
saying
positions
to
versus public positions.
Exactly. She was talking to Wall Street with huge fees, and then she was telling the public some other big things. So she was. I mean, if you're a journalist, you receive this information, and you don't publish, you are interfering in an election in the sense that you are aiding someone to win an election by not publishing their crimes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and it seems like every time there is a public enemy of the state, like Assange, somebody who is, ardently challenging power, wherever it, comes, he was just as, comfortable challenging, any administration, his, quest was to challenge power, because there's no, political faction or party to be coddled by at this point, you're just sort of hung out to dry, and they're able to successfully shift public attention away from whatever was exposed, like the, war crimes and corruption that was exposed by Assange, and they're able to effectively assassinate their character and, like you said, create this demagogue, this devil of a man who, doesn't exist and never existed. Why do you think that these tactics are constantly so successful, and what should we, as a conscious left and conscious advocates for free press, be considering as effective counter messaging?
I mean, if you say a lie enough times, it becomes a truth, right? That's been the motto. WikiLeaks has blood on their hands. That becomes a truth, even though there's never been a single person hurt. And they've looked for 10 years. There was a task force in the Pentagon with 110 people called the WikiLeaks Task Force, looking for people to find, if they could find anybody that would be hurt by or was hurt by these publications. They never found it. And they're still using these arguments today in his hearing right now. They've created this monster because the media is very cozy with the establishment, and it's very easy to say official sources say this. But what about the other side? What investigative journalism has died throughout the years. There is less and less investigative journalism, and you could see that very well during the Iraq War, when everybody was talking about WMDs, but nobody was actually doing any research onto the WMDs. And by the way, this is very interesting because the BBC had a source that they named, called David E. Kelly. He was a professional in the atomic fields, and he said that he knew that Iraq had no weapons of mass destruction. I mean, no nuclear capabilities. And he told that to the BBC. The BBC revealed his name. He got into a whole lot of trouble and ended up killing himself. So the BBC has blood on their hands, not WikiLeaks. I mean, The Guardian has published literally lies about American Trump representatives coming to see Julian, give him the DNC stuff. And what people don't realize is that another one, WikiLeaks is anti-American. That is a bunch of crap. I mean, WikiLeaks has published documents of people all around the world, and it's not the first election that WikiLeaks has been involved in. It was involved in 2007 in the election of Kenya, and they released documents of the high corruption that one of the candidates was having, and it was actually the president. And he lost the election. I think he went to jail because of the leaks that WikiLeaks published. This is not interfering with elections. You know who interferes in elections? The United States. They fund the opposition in Venezuela to create coups.
Bolivia.
They did Bolivia. You know, in 2009, Hillary Clinton helped the opposition to do a coup d'état of Manuel Zelaya in Honduras. You know, this is I mean, Russia intervening in the United.
Yeah.
And by the way, sorry,
yeah.
I wanted to end this point. After WikiLeaks revealed Vault 7 in 2017, when it was already very well surveilled by the CIA, as we know now, WikiLeaks also revealed the Russian spy files. Did anybody report on that in the West? No, but it's there. You know, WikiLeaks reports on everything that it gets that is information that the public needs to know, and it's censored in any form.
And despite the sort of, complicity that the press has carried in, perpetuating these big propaganda myths of the Western imperial powers like the US and the UK, as I understand it, no press or very little press was even allowed to cover the Julian Assange hearing. If I'm not mistaken, I think one of the few, lefty voices that was able to get in there was Craig Murray, and he had to disguise himself as a member of Julian Assange's family to be permitted to, cover the trial. So I'm just wondering, even after all of these, decades of, towing the line and, working with the big governments to cozy up, they're still completely excluded. Amnesty International was barred from monitoring the trial in person, if I'm not mistaken. These are all of the, show that all the signs of a complete sham trial, and yet there's been absolutely no coverage of it in that way at all. I'm just wondering, what's the point of the journalists kind of playing ball with the government if they're going to be completely left out in the cold, even on a landmark case like this? They can't even cover it favorably.
Yeah, we're not even asking for favorable coverage.
Yeah.
Fair is,
yeah.
But it's not even that. I mean, this was an appalling case of a closed justice. This was a closed court. This was not open justice. There was 40 organizations, including Amnesty International, Reporters Without Borders, several international federations of journalists, members of European Parliament, members of the German Parliament, members of the Irish Parliament, who asked to have, because of COVID, there was restrictions inside the courtroom, as there should be. So they were given a link that I also got as a journalist to be able to monitor the case. So we saw the case every day. Logging in, and we were apart from every single day there was technical glitches, we're able to see it. there was space for 10 journalists in there. One of them was a BBC journalist who went there every day. He did two articles, no television, and basically stole a seat from somebody that could have been in there. And there was access to journalists who applied to be present, to have this, but it was a very limited amount of people. And the important thing is that the day that the trial started on September the 7th, the 40 observers, the observing groups, they were banned from the access that they were given to see the live stream, and this was a decision by the judge, and she did not ever explain why. I mean, I remember because this is everything about the Julian Assange case is so irregular. I remember that day the head of Amnesty International saying, this must be some clerical error. I'm sure by this afternoon we'll have access back. We do this all the time. This is our bread and butter. But they never did. They never did get access. And the only people that actually did get access were Reporters Without Borders. And that's because they went into court very early. There was only 5 slots available for the public, and volunteers would get up at 5 a.m. to queue to give them a space so that they could monitor the trial and then monitor it, send the information out to all the other monitors that were supposed to have joined. No legal action has been taken to this, but I mean, it is I don't think that there is a precedence for how absolutely insane this thing is. The most important case in our lifetimes, and I'm not doing a hyperbole here. This is the most important case in our lifetimes, and the monitors are not allowed in. Independent monitors to witness the sham of a trial that this was, how the prosecution lied to the court. They literally lied to the court. How the judge, for example, on a case written by Craig Murray, most of us reporters decided not to report on Julian Assange's mental health because it's a very private matter. But it is now public knowledge that he is a suicide risk, and that he had hidden a razor blade inside an underwear. This underwear there was a check in his room, and the blade was found by one of the people in that made, and then there was a report made. The day that one of the special witnesses brought that up, the prosecution said, "This is not true. You have no evidence. You have no evidence that this ever happened." And that was absolutely lying to court. And then the day after, the defense swiftly produced a document that reported the event and said that stated everything that happened. And in paragraph 19, it said that Julian Assange, it was found, the razor blade was found, but Julian Assange was not charged over it. And the judge refused to take it as evidence, except for paragraph 19 that said Julian Assange was not charged over this incident. Because if she would have taken the rest of the stuff as evidence, we know because of the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Niels Melzer, that he is being psychologically tortured, and and we know because of his doctors that he is suicidal, and by her taking this evidence, it would be more difficult for her to make a decision not to extradite him, because he would be a bigger risk of suicide if he is extradited to the United States, because he would be put in a place called ADX Florence and under something called Special Administrative Measures, SAMS, which means complete isolation. I mean absolute complete isolation, not talking to anybody. We talk to lawyers on rare occasions. His lawyers are not allowed to talk about his case, and these measures were made by the Bush administration to make sure that terrorist prisoners were not able to send messages to Al Qaeda, right? But he is a national security defendant in this matter, so he will be placed under SAMS by all the experts that testified. And SAMS means that you spend the rest of your life in a cell by yourself, and then you get a recreation hour, right? What does that mean? They open the door to another cell that is empty. The other one has a bathroom and a table. The recreation hour is in another cell that is empty for you to recreate for an hour under other walls. And the window is the size of an iPhone. So I mean, this is the type of shit that
absolute torture.
Expects.
Yeah, I mean, a complete human rights disgrace, essentially.
Yeah.
A constructed human hellhole.
So we were I mean, when we were hearing this, we were thinking, what the fuck? First of all, why are we comparing Julian to the worst terrorists that the United States has prosecuted? Well, because there is no precedent for what is happening. And secondly, why does the United States have those measures to begin with? This is torture. It's like what they used to call the CIA torture is special enhanced interrogation.
Yeah, enhanced interrogation techniques. Yeah.
Yeah.
Juan, I don't mean to jump in here too quickly. We're about to be at the end of our hour together, and I just wanted to ask you, if, since we've covered such a wide range of topics here, there's the expanse of criminality by both the government of the United States and the UK through all of this, and the inability to give Julian Assange a fair trial being so evident, yet the lack of coverage being so stark. I'm just wondering what message you would want to leave listeners with. What can people do? How can they influence this? And how can they, play their part in, I guess, salvaging the remnants of free press in the West?
And also, what's the future of WikiLeaks? I wanted to know too, under the next couple months and going forward.
WikiLeaks is continuing.
Okay.
I mean, it's waiting for the next leak on the World Health Organization or Pfizer and their whatever. WikiLeaks is still working, and they're still open. And even if Julian Assange is extradited, WikiLeaks is still being funded by the public. And it's still going to continue publishing. The new editor-in-chief is called Kristin Krafsen, and they're working on stuff. Obviously, there has been some pause because I think people right now think, okay, WikiLeaks might not be the best place to send my leaks, but this will pass. That's no issue. I mean, WikiLeaks will survive. A world without WikiLeaks is not a world anybody wants to live with. And secondly, what can you do? You really need, this is a political case. So you need to engage politically. And the United States and Britain are the most important jurisdictions for this case. So, I mean, follow Defense Assange in the United States. follow the Courage Foundation, follow the Don't Extradite Assange campaign here in the UK. There are many ways where those websites make it easy for you to contact your representative and encourage them to talk about Julian, and join protests, join your groups. There is Don't Extradite Assange groups everywhere in the United States. So just go to Twitter, tweet, inform yourself. If you don't know what's going on, I think that what I've done over the past hour will probably fly over a lot of people's heads if they haven't actually been following the last 10 years. And I'm sorry about that.
Which is why everybody should check out your documentary before giving this interview a listen so they can familiarize themselves with the context. And Gavin will put that on the screen right here.
Yeah,
yes.
Check that out.
Yes, watch the documentary because that will make it more clear about, the so many facets of this crazy case. And and
you can see for yourself all of the footage that we've described.
Yeah. And you can see how the United States has been spying on Assange for years and tortured him. And it's just everything about this case for 10 years has been irregular, and it will continue to be so. So we have to put everything that we have on it, and political pressure, we know works. Black Lives Matters works. Other movements like that, civil rights movements works. And this is a civil rights movement because the First Amendment is your right to express yourself. I think is the most important right that we have, because without the ability to communicate, we wouldn't be able to have any other rights. So it is very important for you guys. If you don't care about Assange or you hate him, I don't care. This is not about him. This is about the future of journalism and democracy, especially in the United States. So if you care about the First Amendment, you have to care about what happens to Julian Assange. Even if you think he's an asshole, I don't care. I don't want to convince you that he's not an asshole. I know him personally. He's a very good guy. I love him. But it's not my role to convince you of that. My job is to tell you that this case is the most important case in our lifetime, and you should get involved.
Absolutely. Well, Juan, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, shed some light on that case in a new way for us both. I know Gavin and I have both enjoyed this conversation as well as our last one, which unfortunately didn't make it to the viewers. We really sincerely thank you for your time, and we'd love to have you back on to chat in the future as this case unfolds.
That'd be great, man. Whenever you guys want, I'm here.
Thanks so much, man.
Thanks so much, Juan. And like we've mentioned, everyone check out Juan's film, The War on Journalism, the case of Julian Assange. Even as someone that was pretty educated about this case, I still learned a lot from watching your documentary. So, thank you for continuing the education of the people when it comes to this extremely important case. Also, make sure to check out and follow Juan on Twitter. Keep up with whatever his next project is or whatever you're up to. And yeah,
I'm making a big film, big film, really? Series. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I can't
plug
really
that away.
Discuss much about that, but I've been filming WikiLeaks for 10 years, so I think it's the time. It's the time to make a series about. Yeah.
Well, if you ever want to do a more official announcement, make sure to hit us up, and we'd love to talk to you again about that project, because I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Same here.
One more announcement for Spanish viewers. On the 1st of December, we're opening, unfortunately, it's going to be, or maybe fortunately, it's going to be virtually. The film is going to be aired in Spanish for the first time, because it's being nominated for the best film at the Barcelona Human Rights Film Festival. So, be sure to check that out. Thank you.
Congrats.
Awesome. Well, Juan, thank you so much. We'll talk to you, I'm sure, here coming up. Have a good rest of your evening, and thanks for coming on.
Keep up the fight, guys.